Even if you've never watched any of the movies or read any of the lengthy books, there's a very good chance you still know the name Harry Potter. The Harry Potter film series is based on 7 novels written by one of England's most influential and groundbreaking storytellers, Joanne Kathleen Rowling.
Single biggest change, and only people who have been extremely broke, I think, will really understand this. Single biggest change it makes in my life, I don't worry about money every day.
In this video, we'll be breaking down the budget and revenue of every Harry Potter movie, while also diving into the behind-the-scenes stories, creative decisions, and circumstances that help transform a children's book about a young wizard into one of the most successful film franchises in film history. It would be pure injustice to break down the budget and revenue of this billion-dollar franchise without taking the time to acknowledge the author who made this all possible. The imagination and passion of one woman has tossed out billions of dollars for publishers, investors, and Hollywood studios through incredibly successful box office sales, merchandising, and countless theme parks for global tourist attractions. But to think that this all started with an idea that had already been turned down by a few clueless publishers who probably still regret that decision till this day. Rowling first conceived the idea of Harry Potter in the year 1990, while traveling on the train from Manchester to London.
Harry Potter came to me on a train in 1990. I was sitting just staring out of the window and the idea just fell out of nowhere. It was the purest stroke of inspiration I've ever had in my life, and I've been writing about him ever since.
Over the next several years, Rowling faced a series of personal struggles: the death of her mother, a failed marriage, and life as a single mother living on government assistance in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Of course, Mum died 6 months after I'd written my first attempt at an opening chapter, and that made an enormous difference. Because I was living it. I was living what I'd just written.
Sitting in cafes with her infant daughter sleeping beside her, Rowling poured her world onto paper. She meticulously mapped out a 7-book series, building a rich magical universe from the ground up.
Because they used to let me sit here for 2 hours at a time when my daughter was asleep next to me in the pushchair. The only way I could get her up to have her nap was to keep her moving. So I used to walk around town, normally this part of town because I wanted to come here, until she fell asleep. Then I'd run in here and sit here with one cold coffee for 2 hours at a time and just write like fury.
It took her 5 years to finish the manuscript for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. But even then, the battle was far from over. She submitted the manuscript to multiple publishers and got turned down by all of them. They felt that a children's book shouldn't be that long and saw no upside to make a profit. However, things were about to change. After countless rejections, Rowling's manuscript found its way to Barry Cunningham at Bloomsbury Publishing. Barry was captivated by the story, especially the friendship between Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Though he didn't fully realize just how extraordinary the book would become, he decided to take a chance. He offered Rowling her very first book deal with an advance of £2,500. This obviously wasn't life-changing money for her, but it helped to keep her going while she worked on the second book.
And I didn't know how long the journey had been, of course. I didn't know how many publishers had turned her down, and agents, indeed. And then I invited her down to London, and she said yes.
Barry also advised Rowling to keep a day job so she could support herself and her daughter, warning that there wasn't much money to be made in children's literature. Little did he realize, he had just set in motion one of the most powerful literary and cinematic legacies the world would ever see.
He said to me, now remember, you're not going to make much money. There is not much money in children's books, which I completely accepted. He was being realistic to me, obviously.
I gave her the infamous advice, really, was that she would never make any money out of children's books, and she should really think about getting a day job as well.
By the early 2000s, Rowling's books were already gaining a huge fan base around the world and was also dominating bestseller lists. And of course, the ever-so-hungry Warner Brothers made sure they stepped in to see how they could also profit from this magical sensation. Warner Brothers bought the rights to the first 4 books for a reported $2 million, a relatively small price for what would soon become a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Rowling, rightfully protective of her vision, negotiated complete creative control over the films. One of her key stipulations was that the films had to be authentically British, with a UK cast, and all of the filming had to be done in Britain.
Actually, we're doing really well with the movie. Well, I'm delighted to say that so far it looks like it's going to be an all-British cast.
Now, to the studio's credit, most of these stipulations were followed, at least for the most part, and it was time to start production and planning for the adaptation of the first book. Several major directors were considered for the first Harry Potter movie, including Steven Spielberg, who initially showed interest but eventually left the project. Spielberg reportedly wanted to animate the movie, but Rowling and Warner Brothers wanted to stay faithful to the books. Ultimately, Warner Brothers selected Chris Columbus to direct the movie, as Columbus had already built a strong reputation for crafting beloved family films like Home Alone and Mrs. Doubtfire, and his experience working with young actors made him a natural fit for the project. More importantly, Columbus was deeply passionate about the world Rowling had created. Columbus made it clear that he wanted to stay faithful to the tone and spirit of the books. His direction would lay the crucial foundation for what would eventually become one of the most successful film franchises in cinematic history.
I called my agent and found out that Steven Spielberg also had the same idea, and he was toying with it at the time. So I said to her, I don't want to think about it. If Spielberg's going to do it, it's not even a possibility. So I didn't think about it for about 6 weeks, and then he passed. And then I was called into Warner Brothers for a meeting, but it was some sort of bake-off. There were about 8 to 10 other directors also interested.
This legendary story begins with a young boy named Harry Potter, who lives an excruciatingly miserable life with his wicked aunt and uncle, along with their spoiled, annoying bully child of a son. But everything changes when a giant-looking fella named Hagrid tracks Harry down and hands him his invitation to attend Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He also reveals the tragic truth that Harry's parents were killed by a powerful dark wizard named Lord Voldemort, and that the lightning-shaped scar on Harry's head is a result of that encounter. On his way to Hogwarts, Harry meets Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger, who quickly become his lifelong friends. Together, the three uncover the secrets hidden within the walls of Hogwarts and prevent a barely human Voldemort from returning to power, relying on the limited magical skills they've developed in their first year. Just like the first book, the first film carried a lot of pressure. The potential for the future was enormous, and everything depended on making a strong first impression.
Every day was a memorable moment, because every day you were, as a director, you're on these incredible sets. So you walk into the Great Hall one day, you walk into the Chamber of Secrets, and as a director, it's the greatest playground in the world.
Daniel Radcliffe was a near-perfect choice to bring Harry Potter to life, capturing the wide-eyed innocence and cautious optimism of a boy who suddenly discovers he's part of a hidden magical world. A few critics noted moments where the young cast, including Radcliffe, Emma, and Rupert, delivered slightly wooden-line readings, but that's to be expected in a film led by child actors. Visually, the use of CGI was ambitious for its time, and for the most part, some of it still holds up reasonably well today. However, there are a few moments like the Quidditch match sequences, where the early 2000s visual effects show their age, with some noticeably dated animation that breaks the immersion a little for modern audiences. Despite these minor blemishes, the film delivered exactly what audiences craved: a classic story of the struggle between good and evil, a grand sense of adventure, colorful and memorable characters, and a richly imagined world. There was an enormous amount of pressure on the production team to get this film right, and Warner Brothers understood the stakes. The entire future of what could become a multi-billion-dollar franchise depended on the success of this single film. The budget for this film was approximately $125 million, which was a high figure for a children's fantasy film at the time, but the magic definitely paid off. The film earned over $970 million worldwide, an astonishing achievement for a franchise's very first entry. It dominated theaters throughout late 2001 and early 2002, ultimately becoming the highest-grossing film of 2001 by a wide margin. Its box office triumph not only solidified the viability of adapting the rest of the Harry Potter books, but also set a new gold standard for young adult fantasy films. Warner Brothers wasted no time greenlighting a sequel, bringing back the cast for another year at Hogwarts. This time, the stakes would get darker, the mysteries deeper, and the magic even more dangerous. The second film begins at the Dursleys' house, where Harry is once again stuck for the summer. Wicked Uncle Vernon and Wicked Aunt Petunia are hosting an important dinner with the Masons in hopes of securing a major business deal, so they warn Harry to stay silent and invisible. However, chaos erupts when Harry meets Dobby, a weird-looking house elf who mysteriously appears in his room. Dobby tries to prevent Harry from returning to Hogwarts, claiming that terrible things will happen if he does. Desperate to stop Harry, Dobby sabotages the dinner party by dropping a cake on Mrs. Mason's head, which obviously makes Wicked Uncle Vernon furious. He blames Harry for ruining his deal with the Masons and locks him up in his room. Not long after, help arrives in the form of Ron, Fred, and George Weasley, who come to Harry's rescue in a flying magic car. After a narrow escape from Wicked Uncle Vernon, Harry spends the rest of his summer with the Weasleys, where he experiences real family warmth for the first time. When it's time to return to Hogwarts, they travel to Diagon Alley through the Floo network. But Harry is accidentally sent to the dark and dangerous Nocturne Alley, a place filled with shady characters and dark magic artifacts. Fortunately, Hagrid finds him and guides him back to Diagon Alley, where Harry runs into his friends and encounters two important new characters: the vain celebrity wizard Gilderoy Lockhart, who will become their new defense against the dark arts teacher, and the cold and calculating Lucius Malfoy, Draco's father. From there, the mystery of the Chamber of Secrets slowly unfolds. Students begin turning up petrified, and a terrifying legend about a hidden chamber deep within the school resurfaces. As Harry investigates, he faces new suspicions, including whispers that he might be the heir of Slytherin himself. Ultimately, Harry uncovers the truth. The chamber has been opened by a bewitched Ginny Weasley, under the control of an old diary possessed by a fragment of Voldemort's soul. In a climactic battle deep beneath the school, Harry faces off against the monstrous basilisk and a shadow of Voldemort himself. With the immense success of the first film, expectations for the Chamber of Secrets were even higher, and the pressure was on to deliver another hit. The film brought back many of the original cast and crew, including director Chris Columbus.
No one thought about anything but the work, and all I really was thinking about is how could I improve on the first one.
The budget for this film was a reported $100 million, a slight decrease from the previous film, but still a considerable sum. This allowed the production team to continue to build upon the grand scale of the magical world established in the Sorcerer's Stone, while also introducing darker and more ominous elements that would become key themes in later installments. Chris Columbus brought a visually vibrant and colorful directing style to the Chamber of Secrets, like he had done in Sorcerer's Stone, while the plot introduced more sinister elements like the basilisk, the mystery of the chamber, and the theme of blood purity. Columbus deliberately kept the film's color palette bright and warm, preserving a sense of wonder and magic that matched the characters' youth. He understood that Rowling intended for the series to gradually grow darker as the characters aged and the stakes rose. But with Chamber of Secrets, he struck a careful balance, laying the groundwork for the tonal shift, while still embracing the charm and vividness of the early wizarding world.
The idea was that the films would get progressively darker and darker and darker. And Joe Rowling basically shared that with David Heyman, the producer, and Steve Kloves, the writer.
Upon its release, the Chamber of Secrets quickly became a hit, drawing large crowds to theaters. It grossed over $880 million worldwide, cementing its place as one of the highest-grossing films of the year. While it didn't achieve the same massive financial success as Sorcerer's Stone, Chamber of Secrets still managed to deliver significant returns, earning back more than 8 times its production budget. The strong box office performance highlighted the continuing appeal of the Harry Potter franchise, and also the increasing anticipation for each new installment, as audiences remained eager for the next chapter in Harry's journey. The film holds an 82% critic rating, with many praising its improved pacing, darker themes, and richer world building. However, some critics felt the climax ended too abruptly, leaving the resolution feeling a little rushed. Even with a marginally lower budget and slightly lower gross, the margin for profit was still enormous. This was another major win for Warner Brothers. The success of the Chamber of Secrets was a testament to the growing dedication of the filmmakers and the loyalty of the expanding fan base. It further solidified Harry Potter as a global phenomenon, with expectations for future films continuing to rise.
When this film is shown 20 years from now and it's on TV at 2:30 in the morning, I want it to feel as fresh as it did in 1990. I want people to think, oh, this was made yesterday. Well, that was the mantra on Harry Potter. We wanted people to share in a timeless experience.
With 2 massive hits under their belt, the Harry Potter franchise was unstoppable. But for the third installment, the series was about to take a bold new turn, one that would reshape the entire tone and style of the wizarding world. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban begins with Harry spending yet another miserable summer with his wicked aunt and uncle. After accidentally inflating his wicked Aunt Marge for talking heavy smack about his parents, Harry furiously runs away from home and finds himself in a magic wizard night bus thingy, which takes him to Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic. And instead of being punished for using magic outside of school, Harry is mysteriously pardoned and taken to the Leaky Cauldron to await his return to Hogwarts. Harry learns that a dangerous prisoner, Sirius Black, has escaped from the wizarding prison Azkaban, and he appears to be coming after Harry. As Harry returns to Hogwarts, the atmosphere is tense. Dementors, terrifying soul-sucking creatures who guard Azkaban, are stationed around the school for protection, but their presence deeply affects Harry, causing him to relive the trauma of his parents' death whenever they come near. Throughout the year, Harry, Ron, and Hermione uncover the truth about Sirius Black. Harry initially believes Sirius betrayed his parents to Voldemort, leading to their death. But in a major twist, Harry learns that Sirius was actually his parents' loyal friend, and that the real traitor is Peter Pettigrew, another member of their close circle who has been hiding in plain sight for years. With the help of Hermione's time device thingy, they managed to rescue both Sirius and a hippogriff named Buckbeak, and by the end of the film, Harry had not only cleared Sirius's name, but also gained a deeper understanding of his parents' past and found a new sense of family in Sirius. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban represented a crucial turning point for the Harry Potter franchise, both in terms of its production and its narrative tone. After the massive success of the first two films, Chris Columbus, the director of Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, chose to step down, citing exhaustion from overseeing the production of two back-to-back films.
I thought at the time I'm going to do all 7 movies. Little did I know that I would be exhausted after 2.
The pressure to deliver another hit was immense, but Columbus had accomplished his goal. He'd laid the foundation for the Harry Potter world. However, the series needed a fresh perspective to continue its growth, and this came in the form of Alfonso Cuarón, a director known for his previous work on films like A Little Princess.
What was the best piece of advice that Chris Columbus gave you?
The best piece of advice is it was be ready for a very long process. Just manage your energy.
Yeah.
And he was so right about that.
The decision to appoint Alfonso as the new director of the rapidly growing franchise raised a few eyebrows, as he was an acclaimed yet unconventional choice for a series aimed at a broad family audience, yet his vision would forever change the series. He infused The Prisoner of Azkaban with a deeper emotional and thematic complexity, marking a shift from the more family-friendly tone of the first two films to a grittier, more mature atmosphere. Visually, the film looked completely different. Where the previous installments had embraced a more colorful and polished aesthetic, Alfonso introduced more sweeping shots and a darker color palette that reflected the growing sense of danger and uncertainty in Harry's world.
What we tried to do is to detect the theme of the film, that was about this kid finding his identity as a teenager. And so once that we went into that line, it was very easy to discriminate which of the multiple elements that play in the book, which ones would be relevant for this theme.
One of Alfonso's most notable contributions was his approach to the cast and their performances. He encouraged the young actors to adopt a more natural style of acting, moving away from the more theatrical performances that had characterized the first two films. This shift was essential as the characters themselves were becoming more mature, and the tone of the film demanded more nuanced performances. Alfonso also made a deliberate choice to have the characters wear their robes casually, rather than the formal presentation seen in previous films. This small but significant change helped to ground the characters in a more relatable, less fantastical reality, which better mirrored their transition from childhood to adolescence.
Early on, we said, okay, how would you wear your uniform? And then first they were all tight. I says, yes, but if your parents were not around. And then they start doing weird things with ties or taking the shirts out. Some of the kids stocking everything and trying to be very neat. And I think that comes through in the film.
The production budget for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was a reported $130 million, which was $30 million higher than the previous film, Chamber of Secrets. This investment by Warner Brothers brought back an impressive $797 million globally. Despite the higher investment and its slightly lower box office performance compared to the first two films, The Prisoner of Azkaban was still a major success. And more importantly, the film expanded the series' appeal to older audiences and critics alike. The Prisoner of Azkaban holds a franchise-high 91% critic score, with critics praising its visual style, emotional complexity, and bold direction.
The most important thing was to serve the material. And as J.K Rowling asked me to be faithful to the spirit of the book, not to be literal. So that's a big responsibility.
With its bold new tone established, the next chapter would have to raise the stakes even higher. The Goblet of Fire begins with Harry having a disturbing dream about Lord Voldemort, Wormtail, and another mysterious man plotting to get him. He wakes up frantically unsettled, but still travels with his friends to the Quidditch World Cup. After the match, Death Eaters attack the campsite, and Harry is briefly separated and knocked unconscious. During the chaos, the dark mark is cast into the sky, just the way it was in Harry's dream. Back at Hogwarts, Harry, Ron, and Hermione learn that the school would be hosting the Triwizard Tournament. 3 champions are chosen by Dumbledore, and from nowhere, a 4th name emerges from the goblet, that name being Harry Potter. Despite being too young for the tournament, and insisting that he didn't put in his name, Harry is forced to compete due to some weird magical binding contract thingy. Many students turn against him, and Ron, feeling betrayed, distances himself from Harry. Meanwhile, Harry soon discovers that the first challenge would be to retrieve a golden egg from a dragon. As the tournament progresses, Harry faces deadly challenges that test his courage and resilience. During the final task, Harry is transported to a graveyard where Voldemort is reborn in physical form, marking his terrifying return. Harry narrowly escapes with Cedric Diggory's lifeless body, sending shockwaves through the wizarding world. Though many refuse to believe Voldemort has returned, Harry and his friends know the truth, ushering in a much darker chapter of their journey. With the stakes now higher than ever, Goblet of Fire marks a turning point in the series where childhood illusions begin to fade, and the looming threat of evil becomes impossible to ignore. This entry in the series expanded the magical world we had come to love, but it also marked a major turning point tonally, leaning into heavier, more mature themes of adolescence. So it was no surprise that this was the first Harry Potter film to have a PG-13 rating, because the characters were growing up, and the stakes were higher than ever. Following the artistic success of Prisoner of Azkaban, Warner Brothers needed a director who could handle large scale and spectacle. They hired British filmmaker Mike Newell, who was best known for his film, Donnie Brasco.
I'd never done CGI like this before. And of course, people were very generous and tried to teach me how to do it, told me how to do it, but it's simply, you were learning on the job, which is quite a freaky thing. And I didn't know quite how to handle it sometimes.
He was the first British director to take the reins, bringing a more grounded, relatable feel to the magic wizarding world. He steered the story toward the messy and emotional reality of adolescence, leaning heavily into the teenage angst rivalries and the general awkwardness that comes with growing up. The character development of the main cast also shines very well in this film. For the first time in the film's franchise, the characters are shown dealing with jealousy, insecurities, hormonal tensions, and romantic confusion. Ron's resentment towards Harry for being selected as a Triwizard champion strains their friendship, while the Yule Ball brings out nerves, social awkwardness, and teenage heartbreaks in a way that feels both humorous and painfully relatable. The fourth Harry Potter film stands out as one of the most fast-paced and entertaining entries in the series. With each successive film in the franchise, the expectations from both fans and the studio grew exponentially. From the massive Triwizard Tournament challenges to the spectacular duel between Harry and Voldemort at the film's climax, the film required a significant investment in practical effects, CGI, and set design. As a result, the production budget soared to a reported $150 million, which was $20 million more than the last film and $50 million more than the one before that, reflecting the immense scale of this film's ambitions. This was the largest budget in the Harry Potter series at that point in time, as the filmmakers sought to deliver a movie that could match the grandiosity of the source material while capturing the darker and more mature themes of the novel. Despite the considerable financial risk, the gamble paid off in spectacular fashion. The film ultimately grossed a remarkable $896 million worldwide, making it the second highest-grossing film of the year, just behind Star Wars 3, securing its place as one of the highest-grossing films in the entire franchise at the time. It also holds an 88% critic rating, with some audiences appreciating the film's bold step into more mature territory, while some fans of the books were disappointed by the film's pacing and omission of certain subplots. Regardless of the critical reviews, this film marked a key transition for the series from magical mystery to epic mythological war story. Now that Voldemort had returned, the wizarding world was in complete denial, and the series was about to enter its most political and emotionally complex phase yet. The story of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix begins during one of the darkest summers yet. After witnessing Cedric Diggory's death and Voldemort's return, Harry is attacked by Dementors while walking with Dudley and uses a Patronus spell to save him. Since using magic outside of school is prohibited for underage wizards, Harry is called to a disciplinary hearing, but thanks to Dumbledore's intervention, all the charges are dropped. Afterwards, Harry is taken to the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix, where he learns more about their efforts to stop Voldemort and the danger that's quietly building. Back at Hogwarts, the Ministry installs Dolores Umbridge as the new defense against the dark arts teacher to silence talk of Voldemort's return. Meanwhile, Dumbledore distances himself from Harry, knowing their connection puts him at risk due to Harry's mental link with Voldemort. After a series of visions, Harry is tricked into believing Voldemort is torturing Sirius at the Ministry of Magic, so him and his friends try to break into the Department of Mysteries to rescue him, only to find it was a trap. They're ambushed by Death Eaters, trying to retrieve a prophecy about Harry and Voldemort. Later on, Voldemort appears and has a magic wand beam battle with Dumbledore, while Harry sits nearby waiting for more reinforcement to arrive. The film sets the stage for the final confrontations to come, as the resistance against Voldemort's forces intensifies. With Mike Newell stepping aside after Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Warner Brothers made the decision to bring in David Yates, a director known more for his work in television and political dramas than for big-budget fantasy films. Yates, who had directed the acclaimed British political thriller State of Play, was a relatively lesser-known name in the film industry compared to his predecessors like Chris Columbus, Alfonso Cuarón, and Mike Newell. However, his previous work had demonstrated a sharp ability to handle complex storytelling, subtle emotional depth, and intense character-driven narratives, all the qualities that would serve him well in the darker, more intricate world of Harry Potter.
It felt like a very safe environment. You know, I'd never made a studio picture before. I always assumed when you made studio pictures there was some team of execs who would always be fluttering around looking over your shoulder. But they kind of just let me get on with it. They were very excited about the dailies, they've been very positive and happy with the film. So I felt more or less like, well, this is pretty cool. I can just make the film I want to make, and I did.
Yates wasn't too concerned with the grand spectacle of the magical spells and wizard banter, but with how the personal stakes of Harry's journey was going to be affected by the larger battle between good and evil. He introduced a more grounded and serious approach, emphasizing emotional depth, character evolution, and the consequences of the escalating war against Voldemort. Warner Brothers made a significant commitment to the film's budget, increasing it to an estimated $200 million. This was a clear indication that the studios recognized the value of the franchise, especially due to the fact that the story was now at the midway of the saga. The increased budget was allocated across several key areas, including visual effects, set designs, and an aggressive marketing campaign, all of which were crucial to maintaining the series' high standard of fantasy spectacle, while also deepening the emotional and narrative weight of the story. This investment paid off handsomely. Order of the Phoenix earned over $941 million worldwide, making it the second highest grossing film of the series up to that point, just behind Sorcerer's Stone. This was a remarkable achievement, considering the fact that it was the fifth film in the franchise, and audiences were growing increasingly accustomed to the magic of the wizarding world. Critically, the film holds a 78% score, with some fans disappointed by the absence of certain book details, while many praised its emotional depth and political parallels. With the box office nearing $1 billion, a relatively controlled budget, and immense merchandise sales, the fifth film was another commercial triumph. However, nothing would prepare audiences for the betrayal that came next. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince continues this epic magic saga, as the wizarding world is now in the grip of Voldemort's terror, and Death Eaters are wreaking havoc both inside and outside of the magical community. With the stakes forever increasing, Dumbledore enlists Harry in a secret mission to help uncover Voldemort's past in the hopes of finding a way to defeat him once and for all. While in potions class, Harry finds a book once owned by some fella with the nickname Half-Blood Prince. The book contains mysterious annotations and spells that help Harry excel in potions, making him more confident and skilled in magic than ever before. Meanwhile, Draco Malfoy seems to be involved in some extra shady business, and Harry grows suspicious of his actions. As the year unfolds, Dumbledore begins sharing memories with Harry that reveal Voldemort's early life and his obsession with creating Horcruxes, which are some weird magical thingies that Voldemort uses to store pieces of his soul. Along with these discoveries, the main cast also navigate personal struggles of their own. Ron starts dating Lavender Brown, which obviously hurts Hermione, and Harry realizes he might have feelings for Ginny Weasley. Eventually, Dumbledore and Harry travel to a cave to retrieve what they believe is one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. While retrieving the magic soul thingies, they get attacked by zombie-like creatures called the Inferi, which almost kill Harry, but Dumbledore was ready to crash out to save him. After surviving the ordeal, they return to Hogwarts, only to find the school under attack. Death Eaters have entered through a secret passage with the help of Draco Malfoy. Meanwhile, up in the Astronomy Tower, Dumbledore gets disarmed by Malfoy, but he just can't bring himself to kill him. Shortly after, Snape arrives and kills Dumbledore himself. After Dumbledore's death, Harry finds out that the magic soul thingies they recovered was fake. He then decides not to return to Hogwarts. Instead, he sets out with Ron and Hermione to find and destroy the remaining Horcruxes and ultimately defeat Voldemort. The emotional weight of this chapter makes it one of the darkest and most poignant films in the series. Relationships are tested, and alliances are formed in unexpected places, leaving Harry and his friends to face their greatest challenge yet. David Yates returned as the director for this movie, and with this, he solidified his vision for the series that would carry through to the final films.
The Half-Blood Prince refers to a book which comes into Harry's possession, and the book is the property of the Half-Blood Prince. And whoever the Half-Blood Prince was obviously very, very capable, at kind of taking the conventional academic text of how to make certain potions, and what he would do is he would scribble things, invert the actual recipes for things, and he would make them significantly better. So whoever the Half-Blood Prince was, he was very smart and a very original thinker.
While the source material is rich with critical elements of Voldemort's backstory, the discovery of Horcruxes, and the rising threat of the Dark Lord, Yates chose to focus the film's tone on a more artistic and emotional level. He took a deliberate approach in emphasizing the characters' emotional journeys and the relationships between them, while still maintaining the series' darker elements. The film's visuals are drenched in shadows and dim lighting, creating a sense of foreboding that mirrors the growing threat of Voldemort and his Death Eaters. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince had a monumental budget of approximately $250 million, which placed it among the most expensive films ever made at the time. By this point in the saga, the series had firmly established itself as a blockbuster event, and the studio recognized the value of pouring significant resources into a film that was destined to draw massive audiences worldwide. The film went on to gross an astonishing $930 million worldwide, making it one of the highest-grossing films of the year. It became the second highest-grossing film of 2009, right behind Avatar. The movie's impressive earnings confirmed that the series had not only cemented its place in the hearts of its core fans, but also had a broad appeal across all demographics, maintaining a massive dedicated fan base with each installment.
Well, you know, it's just intense. It's like a marathon. Making these movies, they take 6 months to shoot. It's quite a big job, but I enjoy it. It's really fun. The energy of the young cast is tremendous. That really lifts you up, and it's so exciting to know that there's a big audience waiting to see what you've done.
This film received a solid reception with an 83% critic rating, with the mature tone and the focus on the characters' emotional journeys highly praised. However, the film did not escape some criticism from fans, particularly those who were hoping for a more action-packed narrative. With all that said, Harry was about to face his greatest challenge yet, a mission that was about to decide the fate of the entire wizarding world. The film opens with the newly appointed Minister for Magic, publicly acknowledging that the people were now living in dark times, but still insisted that the ministry was strong and in control. Meanwhile, Harry Potter prepares himself for a dangerous mission ahead. He knows the time has come to finally finish what Dumbledore had started, which was the search for Voldemort's Horcruxes. Hermione also prepares herself, taking drastic measures to protect her family by erasing all memory of herself from her parents' lives. Meanwhile, Snape meets up with Voldemort and the Death Eaters and tells him the date of Harry's departure from the Dursleys. Voldemort then insists that he must be the one to kill Harry, but he needs a different wand because of some random twin thingy with him and Harry's wand. He takes Lucius Malfoy's wand, punishing the Malfoys for past failures. To move Harry safely, the Order of the Phoenix creates decoys using the Polyjuice potion, but during their escape, they're ambushed by Death Eaters. Voldemort nearly kills Harry after having a magic wand beam battle together, but their wands clash again, preventing Voldemort from succeeding. This film follows Harry's journey to find and destroy the Horcruxes, and in doing so, it introduces the concept of the Deathly Hallows. Harry, Ron, and Hermione all experience personal losses throughout the film, forcing them to confront the realities of war. The death of beloved characters, particularly Dobby, highlights the sacrifices that will need to be made for the greater good. Their journey is as much about their personal growth as it is about stopping Voldemort. They must learn to navigate complex emotions, relationships, and moral dilemmas as they fight for the future of the wizarding world. Voldemort's quest for immortality and ultimate power is examined more deeply in this installment.
And Voldemort has to be really terrifying when you look at him, but I wanted to understand why he was scary and to see his weaknesses, and I thought that was quite interesting, so I encouraged Rafe, and Rafe was keen to explore the kind of vulnerable side of Voldemort, i.e. his fear, his anxiety, the things that make him the monster he is, basically.
With Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, it became evident that the filmmakers have shifted their focus towards crafting a more immersive and intricate story that assumes the audience is already familiar with all the backstories of the wizarding world. The production budget for the Deathly Hallows was an estimated $250 million, a figure that accounts for both parts of the final installment in the Harry Potter saga. This investment paid off handsomely. Deathly Hallows grossed an impressive $976 million worldwide, making it one of the top-grossing films of 2010. This substantial box office success highlighted the immense anticipation surrounding the final films in the Harry Potter series. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows earned a solid 77% critic rating, with many fans impressed by the main cast performance, who all had to carry the emotional weight of the story in a more somber, introspective setting. The pacing of the film, however, became a point of contention for some, leading some to feel that the film's momentum stalled. In the end, while some critics and viewers found the slower sections to be a bit of a slog, many praised the film for its ability to build tension and character relationships in a way that set the stage for the explosive conclusion in Part 2. After the somber and emotionally charged events of Deathly Hallows, the stage was set for the final confrontation between Harry and Voldemort, with the stakes set even higher. It had taken 10 years, 8 movies, and nearly 20 hours of screen time for J.K. Rowling's towering fantasy saga to reach its cinematic conclusion. The Deathly Hallows Part 2 picks up seamlessly from where its predecessor left off, diving straight into the perilous final chapter of Harry's journey. Harry, Ron, and Hermione continue their mission to locate and destroy the remaining Horcruxes, knowing that each moment they delay brings Voldemort one step closer to ultimate victory. The looming threat of the Dark Lord and his followers casts a shadow over everything, and the sense of urgency is palpable, especially as the trio's quest leads them back to Hogwarts, where a final battle between good and evil will take place. As the war intensifies, Harry and his friends are forced to confront not only some of the external dangers of the war, but also their own personal fears, sacrifices, and the harsh realities of growing up. This film captures the emotional gravity of the series' central themes: love, loyalty, and the fight for good, while also bringing closure to long-running plot threads. The action in this film is relentless, with thrilling confrontations and moments of heartbreak, as the characters confront their destiny in the most epic battle ever waged on the hallowed grounds of Hogwarts. Every scene in Part 2 feels charged with significance, culminating in an explosive series of events that ultimately lead to Harry's fateful showdown with Voldemort. However, the film isn't just about action. It's a poignant farewell to beloved characters and places, marking the end of an era while reflecting on how far Harry and his friends have come. The war may be coming to an end, but the emotional stakes of this concluding chapter make it a fitting, bittersweet conclusion to the saga. Directed once again by David Yates, and written by longtime series screenwriter Steve Kloves, Deathly Hallows Part 2 had the enormous task of delivering a satisfying conclusion to a story that had unfolded over a decade. Every spellcast and every magic wand beam battle was carefully choreographed to keep the stakes personal and grounded even amid the chaos. The result wasn't just an action film, it was a deeply emotional war movie that honored this legendary story by J.K. Rowling. With a reported production budget of $125 million, Deathly Hallows Part 2 didn't just recoup its costs. It shattered expectations, grossing an astonishing $1.3 billion worldwide. A fittingly epic conclusion to a truly magical saga. A befitting way to end a beautiful story. It became the highest-grossing film of 2011, and at the time, one of the top 20 highest-grossing movies in cinematic history. The overwhelming financial success not only underscored the series' unstoppable popularity, but also solidified Harry Potter's place as a once-in-a-generation cultural phenomenon. A story that had grown up alongside its audience and left an unforgettable mark on both literature and film history. The film also holds an impressive 96% critic rating, with critics praising it as a near-perfect finale, a breathtaking combination of dazzling visuals, heart-pounding action, and emotional weight that paid off years of character development. What had started in 2001 with a relatively small, hopeful adaptation of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone had over a decade evolved into a global phenomenon. Millions of fans had grown up alongside Harry, Ron, and Hermione, watching them move from childhood innocence into the complexities of adulthood. But it all began with a story written by J.K. Rowling.
So even though I'd always known it would be 7 books, that was it. I knew how it was going to end. When it ended, I was in a slight state of shock.
A single idea scribbled on a train ride that grew into a global phenomenon. Her imagination built a universe that transcended the page and screen, leaving a cultural legacy that continues to inspire generations. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon on the next one. Thank you so much for watching.